questions.
My lords, because I haven't discussed this at all with the noble Lord Moylan, but I have some similar concerns. I've always wanted this to be a children's online safety bill. That's what I wanted. And my concerns generally have been about threats to adults' free speech and privacy, and indeed the threat to the UK as the home of technological innovation. So I've kind of been happy to say that, you know, things that are about protecting children, I'll kind of, you know, stay stum on. But I got quite a shock when I saw the series of government amendments, because I suddenly thought, well, now the danger is, you know, in my head, and in fact what most people in the public think is that this bill will tackle things like suicide sites and pornography, and we've heard some of that very grim description. We've also, and I've been completely convinced by those people who say it's the systems, you know, I get all that. But here we actually have a series of amendments all about content. Endless amounts of content, highly politicised, contentious content, as it comes to that, and actually an ever-expanding list of harms that we now have to deal with. And I think that makes me very nervous. Just on the misinformation and disinformation point, I do think that those terms are, I mean, in this, the Minister's right, I do think that they've been, you know, whether for children or for adults, have been weaponised terms. It's often used to delegitimise perfectly legitimate, if contrary or minority views. I did want to say to the noble Baroness Kidron, that the sort of studies that say that youth are the fastest growing far-right group, you know, I think themselves are actually misinformation often. I was reading a report recently about this phenomena, and what was considered to be, you know, evidence of far-right views were things like the, you know, being gender critical, or, you know, going along with opposing the small boats arriving. That wasn't to do with youth, but I'm just saying, at least you can see that this is like quite a difficult area. What the far right is, as defined by groups like Hope Not Hate, for example, I'm sure that many people, even in here, would fit into, because it's so broad. But anyway, my main concerns are around Amendment 172, which the Minister has put forward. And I do think there is this problem, which is that because it's about protected characteristics, or it apes the protected characteristics of the Equality Act, we might get into difficulty. But can we at least recognise that even in relation to the protected characteristics as noted in the Equalities Act, there are raging big rows politically, and I just don't know how appropriate it is that the Minister has brought forward an amendment that he's dragged young people into this mire. We might note that Mayor Forstater has just won a case in which she was accused of being opposed to somebody's protected characteristic, but in fact she was sacked as a consequence, and because of the protected characteristic of her philosophical views, she's just won the case and won a substantial amount of money. I'm worried when I see this kind of list of we should be, I mean, it's not even just inciting hatred, which is anyway ambivalent about what that would mean, but it actually says that if you would be targeted, sorry, I'm trying to work out what it says here, abuse based on race, religion, I mean, sex, sexual orientation, disability. I mean, even abuse, I just think this is just an absolute minefield for the government to have wandered into. And whether you like it or not, it will have a chilling effect on young people's ability to debate and discuss. Just on the religion point, just think of the controversy. If you're worried that there might be some abuse that's aimed in relation to religion, will that mean that you won't be able to have, for example, a discussion about Charlie Hebdo? Right? What if you wanted to show the Charlie Hebdo cartoons or share them? Will that count? Some people would say that's abusive or inciting. I think this is not where the bill ought to be going, and at the very least should not be going so this late at night. Under race, I noticed that it says nationality is one of the indicators of what we should be looking out for. And maybe it's because I kind of live in Wales, but there's a fair amount of abuse aimed at the nationality of being English. and I've got a lot of Scottish friends who dole it out as well. Will young people who use that, does this count? I just can't get it. But my final question is in relation to Section 11, which is, this is about protecting children. And yet it lists as a characteristic, it needs to be a person who has the characteristic of gender reassignment if the person is proposing to undergo, is undergoing, or has undergone a process or part of a process for the purpose of reassigning the person's sex by changing physiological or other traits of sex. I mean, are you seriously telling me that you think that I mean, first of all, if the government is accepting that children have not just proposed to reassign, but have changed and been reassigned, then that is a breach of the law. But that's not meant to be happening. You will know how bad this is. You will know. I just wondered whether the Department of Education has seen this clause, because they're trying to untangle, as we speak, the freedom for people to not have to go along with people's pronouns and so on. So I just want to know whether there is a really serious danger this late in the day that something that is genuinely important, which is protecting children, has not just wandered itself into the most contentious areas of political life. And actually, I think it's very dangerous for a government minister, or for government amendments, to affirm gender reassignment to and about children. Genuinely, that is irresponsible and goes against what the government at the moment is bringing out guidance for us to avoid. So please, can the Minister clarify what is happening with that Amendment 172?